I think we do have the goal ahead.
Jamie here on the back of some pretty dramatic top decks in the mirror match in the semifinals.
Yeah, no kidding. There's Mother of Runes. Our finals are underway. Medanic with a Misty Rainforest. He's going down to 19. We'll see what land he wants to search up. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a basic forest. Doesn't want to open himself up to Wasteland at all. And there's the basic.
Steve's take on this deck, very different. The 4 Blood Moons in the sideboard haven't really seen before, and definitely served him well in taking care of Noah Cohen playing Bug Delver in the quarterfinals.
This is a Deathrite Shaman. That is a Swords of Plowshares. Get that thing off the table. Try to slow down the development here of Medanic, and now Mother of Rune's going to come in for 1. No interest in playing defense with that creature. That's not what you're trying to do in this matchup. However, for Scheffer, no second land. For Steve, that's a Bayou, so he opens himself up to Wasteland a little bit. There's Elvish Visionary to do some cantripping. He draws a basic forest off of that, can pass the turn back.
And I believe that Steve has Glimpse in hand and some elves.
Could be go time.
Yep.
Scheffer just has to pass the turn back. Drew another copy of Glimpse. He's going to play a forest. He'll cast a Glimpse right now. Let's see where he can go.
I'm not a big fan of preemptively playing the land here, because it does lock out the possibility of drawing Cradle as your first draw step, and then you have a little bit more mana to work with.
Well, here's a Heritage Druid, but it looks like Scheffer's going to have a response with Swords of Plowshares, and he will. So second one of those is going to take care of the Nettle Sentinel. The Heritage Druid, of course, will resolve, and he'll get to draw a card off of that, but he doesn't get to go crazy, even though he does have 2 more copies of Glimpse in hand.
So that's a small victory there for Jamie, preventing Steve from potentially fully going off that turn, but you know, if Steve's leftovers are very good, it may not matter for very much.
A second Mother of Runes, and just a passing of the turn. Steve with 2 glimpses. Well, here's a Nettle Sentinel. We are about to have a whole bunch of fun.
Okay.
Here's 3. Down to 2. 2 cards coming, of course. Hasn't played a land yet. Down to 1. 2 more cards here for Steve. Down to none with the Birchlore Ranger. 2 cards coming.
I believe the Visionary and the Heritage Druid are the creatures that are start off of the turn.
You see him
eligible
pushing
to
forward.
attack, yeah.
3 green.
We'll get back to them later, I feel like.
I have a feeling you're
Keep
right
this in
about that.
mind, but we'll get back to them later.
There's Elvish Visionary, so 1 green left. Does untap the Nettle Sentinel. 3 cards coming now. Somebody found a Cradle. And Steve has not played a land yet this turn. And Jamie says, you know what? I think I've seen enough.
Expedite the process a little bit here.
When I'm beat, I'm beat. And I respect that.
Listen, I don't mind.
He's a beaten man. Opponent's
Yes.
drawing at least 2 cards for every spell they play.
You're going to sit there for, 5 minutes. Could have friends, loved ones watching the match. Listen to us talk about how you're sitting there waiting for the sweet release of death. Might as well just pack it up. It's fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine. Respect the play.
Sideboards in a moment. Back to the booth we will go here, as it is time for our 12-month premium question. Rules, please.
So, Cedric, we'll ask you a question. Tweet your answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responses, one will be selected at random for an entire year of Star City Games premium content. Please keep in mind that this giveaway is run at the sole discretion of StarCityGames.com, and that Twitch TV is in no way responsible for giveaways on its streams.
Next week, Jerry Thompson, Matthias Hunt will be taking care of the Open Series. The question is, where will we be? If you can name that city, which you've already probably typed into Twitter, anticipating that I would ask this question, you can press enter now, but make sure you do have the hashtag of SCG Premium, and you're following at SCG Live, as we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our final round, and it might not take very long.
Could be a fast one.
Yes, it could.
Shaping up that way. I mean, that game, Jamie's draw was not very good, never drew a second land, but it is sort of representative of the issues in the matchup, which is not a lot of relevant disruption, not a lot of speed, very hard for Death and Taxes to win.
To the sideboards we go. And unfortunately, I think for Jamie, he doesn't have a lot of great options here. You see the Cage, that one's certainly good. Needle's not bad either. Either Sworn Canvas, well, okay, his options are terrible, I suppose. 2 Wiltleaf Legis, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Spirit of Labyrinth, Enlightened Tutor, 2 Cataclysm, and 2 Council's Judgment.
There's some legitimate cards to bring in here. The Needle and tons of activated powers in the Elves deck. Graph Digger's Cage, Green Sun Zenith and Natural Order, good at combating those. The Canonist, totally fine on the turns that Steve's trying to do things. Not even necessarily on combo turns. There's numerous normal turns where Steve's casting multiple spells. I even think the 2 Spirit of the Labyrinths can come in here because they're 3 power beaters and they shut down Glimpse.
You got to get a little creative when the matchup's bad, too.
Yeah, he has a lot of inefficient cards he can cut at the matchup, too, more importantly. So plenty of space to cut, and even cards where the likelihood of their disruption coming up and being meaningful is low, that's better than 0, and a lot of the cards in this main deck are 0s.
4 Blood Moons, 3 Abrupt Decay, a Progenitus, 3 Cabal Therapy, an Actual Order, and then 3 copies of Thoughtseize. I can see some number of Abrupt Decays coming, and I think that's it.
You want to be capable of fighting over, Umezawa's Jitte. It's the most threatening card in the matchup, so a couple copies of Abrupt Decay seem to make sense to me. I can get behind, I think I can get behind bringing in another Natural Order. It's a speed matchup.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it at all, bringing in the 4th one.
And you think he has no interest in Progenitus in this matchup?
Yeah, I don't think he needs it personally. I mean, that's just kind of my thought. I mean, he could certainly make the swap. He's got a Rookthar in his main deck that he could board out for the Progenitus if he'd like.
Rookthar does stink up the joint in this matchup, so it seems like an upgrade to bring in Progenitus.
Again, it's a situation where I'm not even sold that he needs Abrupt Decay. I can certainly see bringing in to just kind of hedge. And he is looking at the sideboard that Jamie has because players they have access to each other's deck lists. So, some number of those. But I would like to keep the package just kind of leaning where it's at and just do what I did the last game.
For sure, I can totally respect that. I think that given, it is definitely a flex slot in this list. It's a non-essential element. And given the fact that you can be pretty confident that Jamie's bringing in Spirit of the Labyrinth, I think there's a strong argument to remove the Cataxian Probes from the deck. They're not that powerful in the matchup, and you are playing against Thalia and Spirit of the Labyrinth, which are 2 cards that make Cataxian Probe a lot less attractive. You also don't really have to worry about Jamie having stuff in his hand that's relevant. Whatever good stuff Jamie has in the matchup is going to be on the board, not really sitting in his hand. So I can see just cutting the 4 copies of Cataxian Probe, the Rourke-Thar, bringing in 3 Abrupt Decays, a Natural Order, and a Progenitus, and calling it a day. That seems like a pretty safe swap to me.
Okay. We'll see what Medanic does opt to do here. Game 1, well, that was real easy. We'll see if Game 2 is as well. Again, he has got a great matchup for the finals.
Yeah.
I do think, and I agree with you, where his quarterfinals and his semifinal matchups, well, those were tough. But his finals matchup, looking pretty good.
Absolutely. Every deck in Legacy has the matchup they're trying to avoid.
Something that's just horrible.
For a lot of decks, it's Imperial Painter matchups, Red Blasts and Blood Moons. That's something they can't beat. For something like Miracles, it's 12 post. Every deck has its foil where the format's so big, the decks are so powerful, they interact in so many different ways that you're going to have whatever deck you're playing will have tools that just does not line up against whatever your opponent's up to. And for Death and Taxes, that's Elves.
Yeah. For Goblins, it's everything.
For Goblins, it is most spells.
Yeah. Seems to be recently a living, breathing opponent.
Yep.
Really tough to beat.
Mm-hmm. For Burn, it is Omniscience.
Or a Spellskite.
Yeah, Spellskite's really bad. Most people don't have a Spellskite, thankfully.
Or perhaps, as Adrian Sullivan found out today,
Story Circle.
Story Circle.
Wah, wah. And it's funny, too, because Adrian lost the Story Circle, and I was, while we were talking in the room about his burn list, I was advocating 1 main deck for Phyrexian Revoker.
Oh, wow.
Not for Story Circle, necessarily, but...
It catches everything.
It does catch everything. Up to and including Story Circle.
Losing to Story Circle round 1 is just, that's your tournament right there in a nutshell.
Talk about flashbacks for me.
Yeah.
Lost to that card plenty.
That card's probably too good to print, right?
The thing is, when circle protections are powerful, the gameplay is pretty bad.
Sure.
Story Circle you could print, and maybe it would show up in Standard, maybe it wouldn't. I suspect that it would in most Standard formats, but it's not like it's fun to have one person with Story Circle and 10 white mana up, and the other person with, a bunch of green creatures in play. It's pretty bad gameplay.
You don't get to do anything.
Yeah.
Scheffer taking a long look.
Sometimes it's not just about raw power, it's just how fun is the game when this appears. Story Circle fails that test.
Game designer Patrick has spoken.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie looks like he wants to mulligan, but he's going to keep. Give it a long thought. Let's see what Steve thinks about his hand. He's happy enough. Let's start it up. A vial is a good place to start here for Jamie. Steve draws a card very quickly. You see he's boarded in some discard.
Yeah, looks like he has Thoughtseize.
Yeah. Well, given that Jamie took a long time before keeping his hand, I wouldn't be surprised to see Steve lead off with Thoughtseize.
I mean, it's in his hand now. It seems like a pretty good place to start, given what you just pointed to.
Yeah. Let's see what the grip is here. There's a needle, a swords, a revoker, and then 2 planes.
And you can see why Jamie was contemplating this hand. This looks fine. It does have some disruption and some pressure, but this is the problem with the matchup.
Yeah.
Hands like this don't cut it, even though they're really hard to throw away.
Yeah, it's not very exciting at all. There goes the swords. Steve feeling as though he can beat the revoker and the needle. So Vial up to 1. Sword of Fire and Ice is the draw. Scheffer plays a planes. Does he want to try to get the revoker out there now? Perhaps the needle, preemptively name something. He's just going to pass the turn back, wait until he has some more information. A forest is the draw. Medanic. Looks like he wants to play that for us. He's got an Abrupt Decay in hand as well, so.
He sided in a lot of reactive cards.
There's no Visionary. Time to go Can Trippin'. Picks up Atlanta War Elf. Kick it back over to Scheffer. Up to 2 goes the Vial. Caracas is the draw. There is a Plains as land number 3. And the Mighty Sword is going to come down. What as we know, Medanic does have an answer at the ready with Abrupt Decay.
Yep. I'm not sure if it's good for Steve to have sideboarded this reactively, but it's definitely been good given the cards that Jamie has drawn thus far.
Misty reinforces land number 3 here for Steve. See, the Atlanta War Elf natural order was a draw for the turn.
And now we're probably going to find out not this turn, but next, if Steve brought in the Progentis, because this is a very easy kill from here.
Sacrifice the Misty.
Great play here. Do this on the main phase. Don't let yourself get tagged by a mind sensor.
Yeah, no nonsense. So he wants to search up here. Will be a basic or a non. He's going to go with a non-basic. Make sure that he has black in case Scheffer draws a Wasteland to report.
Yep. Steve definitely conscious of the things that can go wrong, even though he's in a very commanding position.
Visionary in for 1. Here's the Revoker. We'll see what it names.
Looks like that was a quick point at Atlanta War Elf.
Yeah. So we'll take a look at this, and it will slow down that elf. It will just be a boring old 1/1.
Yeah. It is non-land, but can affect mana powers
Correct.
of non-land permanents.
It and Needle are a little bit backwards, so you always have to think about it briefly
Right.
of which one does which. Needle can name lands. I've had my Mutavault stop by that quite a few times, but Revoker cannot. So there's an equip. Here's a bash. And he's going to shoot down. Let's see if it's going to be the Revoker. Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious if it was going to be the sword or the Revoker.
Well, I think if he's going after the Revoker here, it means he's trying to win the game, or effectively win the game very soon from here. Because if he wants the mana this turn and doesn't care about the sword, it means he's probably intending on killing in a turn or two.
I don't think he has any interest in playing anything fair, though the Wasteland does kill Bayou, so very smart, for Steve to search up that Bayou the last turn.
Yep. Now, if the last land in the hand is Dryad Arbor, he may not be able to get to 4 mana this turn.
I don't think that he can, but I don't think it's a big deal because what's the rush?
Yep.
He's not under any pressure. He's got chump blockers for days on the swords. It does get a little bit ugly if Jamie's able to, violin a 2-drop and he peels a GT and has the 4th land and, he puts together that combination. But, that's a pretty good draw if that happens.
Yeah, and you can see Steve thinking about zenithing here. It wouldn't surprise me if he was getting Wirewood Symbiote to give him some protection against the scenario you just mentioned.
Yeah, and I think that's a smart thing to do, and he's immediately going to go get that, make sure he's safe against that combination of draws. Is it likely for that to happen? No. I mean, one of the cards in Scheffer's hand is Needle, so the other one has to be a 2-drop, and then he can't actually draw a land and a GT, but it's one way for him to lose.
Right. No, I like this play. It's easy to get overconfident and rush in matchups like this that are extremely favorable. But Steve has on his radar the things that can go wrong.
Yeah. Play it safe. don't lose to any rubbish. Is this going to finally be that pithy needle? It will. See what this is going to name here for Scheffer.
Now this is interesting here because Jamie did not take the vial up to 3. And if he doesn't have a third land, I think that's a misstep here because he needs to at least threaten Mind Sensor to prevent Steve from doing something with the natural order.
Yeah. It would at least give Steve some pause.
Yeah.
Are the chances that he'd still go for it pretty high? Yeah, I think so.
I think so too, but you gotta at least make him think about it.
It looks like he named Wirewood, but again, we'll get confirmation on what the needle did name here for Scheffer in just a moment.
I don't see much of an incentive for Steve to move here.
And he named Wirewood, and he won't move.
And Jamie with no third land and no vial at 3, so now it's open season here for Steve, and I think we are a natural order away from crowning ourselves a champion.
He can't search quick enough. He'll sacrifice the Elvish Visionary. He's going to go through his deck.
I count 24.
Even late in the night, your count is good. That is a Greater Hoof Behemoth. That's an extension of the ham. And Steve Medanic is going to win this match with a big smile on his face. You can't see his friends here from Iowa, but they are pleased for 2 reasons. The friend wins. They can start the long drive home.
Yeah, 5.5 hours is what it was priced out at. So, you know, they got to drive in front of them, but makes it a little bit easier when you're going home with the trophy.
It sure does. Steve Medanic, our number 5 seed, the top 8. Well, he's number 1, actually. He does win our Legacy Open here in St. Louis. Congratulations to him. An innovative take on Elves. Gets it done, and a great matchup for him in the finals.
Yeah, and congrats to Jamie Scheffer, too. A very good run and a very dramatic comeback in the semifinals where it looked like he was on the ropes game, too. You know, sometimes, you run to that matchup that you just can't win. You would prefer